My wife told me, not in the mood, so stop acting like I owe you my body just because we're married. So I gave her exactly what she wanted, a husband who didn't want her. Now she's wondering why I never came back. Hey Reddit, I've been reading stories here for years but never thought I'd post one myself. Mine isn't about cheating or drama. It's about what happens when love slowly disappears and one person starts pretending that's normal. I'm not here for pity, just wanted to share how I learned the difference between peace and emptiness. I'll be honest, if you told me a year ago that my marriage would fall apart without a single fight, I'd have laughed. My wife Lauren and I had always been solid. 5 years together, 3 married. We had our rhythm. Same grocery day, weekend hikes, movie nights, and yeah, our intimacy was always there. Not like rabbits, but consistent and natural. It was part of how we connected. She used to initiate just as often as I did. There was laughter, teasing, real affection. But a few months ago, something shifted. I couldn't tell you the exact day, but it was like someone flipped a switch and turned the warmth off. It started small. She stopped holding my hand when we watched TV. She'd pull away when I kissed her. Then one night, I reached over in bed to touch her arm like I always did, and she sighed. Not tired, but irritated. I'm exhausted, she muttered. I pulled back a little. You okay? I said I'm tired. Yeah, I heard that. I meant, is something wrong? She rolled over, facing away from me. Nothing's wrong. Stop being annoying. I can't do clingy right now. That word hit me like a cold slap. Clingy? Since when did wanting to be close to my own wife make me clingy? She'd never talked to me like that. I remember just lying there staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself she was just having a bad day. The next morning, she acted normal, made coffee, checked her phone, hummed while scrolling through emails like nothing had happened. I wanted to bring it up but didn't. Part of me didn't want to start a fight over something that might have been nothing. Still, over the next few days, the distance got worse. She was polite but disconnected. Her love yous started sounding like auto responses. She'd sit on the couch with her laptop, earbuds in, completely zoned out. I'd talk, and she'd nod without hearing a word. That Friday night, I tried again. I came up behind her while she was making dinner, kissed her shoulder, and said softly, "Missed you today." She froze like I'd just done something wrong. "I'm literally cooking right now, can you not?" I stepped back. "It's just a hug, Lauren." She didn't even look at me. "You don't have to be all over me all the time." All the time. I stood there realizing I couldn't remember the last time I'd even touched her all week. I backed off and set the table in silence. After dinner, she went to bed early, claiming she had a headache. I stayed up on the couch, trying to piece things together in my head. Work stress? Hormones? Something I said? But no matter how many scenarios I ran, none of them explained the tone in her voice. That snapping, irritated tone like my presence itself was bothering her. By Saturday night, I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I called my best friend Randy. He's been married almost 10 years, got 2 kids, so I figured he might give me a grounded take. He picked up on the second ring. "Yo, what's up?" I told him everything. The attitude shift, the weird coldness, how she suddenly seemed allergic to affection. He said after a pause. "I hate to say this, man, but is there a chance there's someone else?" I rubbed my forehead. I thought of that, but there's no signs. No weird phone habits, no hiding, no late nights. She's just different. Sometimes that's exactly how it starts, he said. They emotionally check out first. Then they justify the rest later. Lauren's not like that, I said immediately, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. I'm not saying she's cheating, he said. I'm saying maybe something's going on in her head that she's not sharing. You need to pay attention, though. We talked for another 20 minutes. Randy didn't say anything I hadn't already thought of, but hearing it from someone else made it feel heavier. After we hung up, I just sat there staring at the dark TV screen, thinking about how crazy it was that I even had to consider those possibilities. I never saw Lauren as the cheating type. She was too proud, too image-focused for that. But then again, people surprise you when they start rewriting the rules in their head. I glanced at the bedroom door down the hall. The lights were off. Part of me wanted to wake her up and just ask straight out, what's happening to us? But the other part knew how she'd react. Defensiveness, attitude, maybe another jab about me being clingy. So I sat there in the dim light of the living room, realizing that for the first time since we met, I didn't know what was going on inside her head, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. I didn't want to be that guy, paranoid, insecure, or one of those husbands who turns into a detective over nothing. But the way she looked at me lately, like I was interrupting her life, was driving me insane. So I decided to stop talking and start watching. Quietly. That Monday, I started paying closer attention. When she left for work, when she came back, what she did at night, who she texted. I wasn't looking to catch her. I just wanted to understand what changed. Every morning she left around 8. Same routine. Evenings were different. If I was home first, I'd greet her at the door. She'd smile, but it was the kind of smile you give your boss when you're pretending to care. We'd have dinner together, talk about work or some random thing she read online. But the second I tried to bridge the distance, even just touching her hand, her body would tense up like I'd just asked for a favor. After a week of tracking her behavior, a pattern formed that I couldn't ignore. When I kept my distance, she was fine. She'd laugh, tell stories from her office, hum while doing the dishes. She'd even tease me about little things, like how I load the dishwasher wrong. But the moment I tried to make it romantic, a kiss on the cheek, a compliment, anything beyond friendly, she'd retreat. Every time. That's what confused me. It wasn't like she was avoiding me completely. She'd text me during the day, share memes, talk about groceries. She just didn't want closeness. Like emotional intimacy was okay, but physical intimacy was somehow dirty or stressful. Still, there was nothing sneaky. No late-night phone calls. No odd names in her notifications. No unexplained absences. If anything, she seemed too normal. That's when Randy's words came back to me. Sudden coldness doesn't just come from nowhere. So maybe it wasn't another man. Maybe it was me. Maybe I'd missed something, said something, did something. I started doubting everything. My tone, my texts, my presence. One Thursday evening, she got home earlier than usual. She seemed in a good mood, chatting about a coworker's engagement party. I decided to play along. I didn't flirt, didn't touch, didn't test. I just let her talk. And like flipping a switch, she relaxed. I noted that down in my head. When I don't want her, she wants to talk. When I do, she shuts down. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe she was replacing me emotionally. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. Someone at work, maybe. A coworker she could be herself around without all the pressure. But again, there were no signs. That weekend, something happened that tested my patience. Saturday morning, she went for a shower, leaving her laptop open on the couch. Normally, she was careful about logging out or closing tabs, but this time, she must have been in a rush. I stared at the screen. Her email inbox was open. I sat there for a solid minute, fighting myself. I wasn't the snooping type. I hated the idea of invading her privacy. But at the same time, I couldn't stand being in the dark anymore. If she's hiding something, I told myself, I need to know. So I did it. I checked her emails first. Work stuff, random subscriptions, a few messages with her sister about redecorating the guest room. Nothing strange. Then I looked at her social media. Just the usual posts about books, dogs, and self-care. I even opened her message history. No sketchy conversations, no flirty emojis, no deleted threads. Everything was normal. And that hit me harder than finding something would've. If there'd been another man, at least it would have made sense. At least there'd be a reason for her behavior. But there was nothing. Just a clean inbox, a normal chat list, a wife who'd emotionally vanished without explanation. I closed the laptop right before I heard the shower stop. My hands were shaking. Not from guilt, but from frustration. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she smiled faintly and said, "Can you hand me my phone?" Her tone was casual, too casual. I handed it over and watched her scroll while walking to the bedroom. No secretive look, no guilt. Just her, acting like everything was fine. I sat there on the couch, staring at the screensaver spinning across her laptop. I felt like an idiot for checking. Later that night, while she scrolled through her phone in bed, I said quietly, "You've been distant lately." She didn't look up. "You're imagining things." "I'm not," I said. "You barely touch me anymore." "Not everything's about that, Jake." Her tone had that sharp edge again. "You make it weird when you turn every little thing into something dramatic." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. There was no point. After she fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about how insane it felt to be married to someone and still feel like a stranger in your own home. There wasn't another man. There wasn't cheating. There wasn't some secret hidden in her phone or laptop. There was just nothing. And somehow, that felt worse than betrayal. At least cheating would have had a reason behind it. This just felt like she'd slowly decided I didn't matter anymore and forgot to tell me. So I did what any logical guy would do. I tested things. I stopped trying altogether. No hugs, no kisses, no flirty comments, just routine. I wanted to see if she'd notice. She didn't. In fact, she seemed lighter. She smiled more, laughed at random videos, even made small talk over dinner. The moment I stopped showing affection, she came alive again. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I wasn't some desperate romantic. I was steady, grounded, but I couldn't understand how my own wife could look happier when I treated her like a roommate. It went on like that for about 2 weeks. I kept my distance, and she seemed relieved. That Saturday morning, we were eating breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee, the usual. She was scrolling her phone, half listening to me talk about work. Out of nowhere, I said, "You ever think about when we might start trying for kids?" Her phone froze mid-scroll. She looked up slowly, like I'd just insulted her. "What? You remember we talked about it a while ago?" I said. "We said maybe after year 3, once we're settled." Her face tightened. "Yeah, about that." "What about it?" "I don't think I want that anymore," she said flatly. I blinked. "What do you mean you don't want that anymore?" "We've always talked about having at least 2. I changed my mind." "Changed your mind when?" She sighed, setting the phone down like she was tired of explaining. "Jake, can we not do this right now? I just don't see myself doing the whole baby thing anymore." "It's not me." "It's not you?" I repeated. "Lauren, we planned our future around this. We bought a house with extra bedrooms because you said—" She cut me off sharply. "Well, I changed. People change. Sorry if that's inconvenient." "Inconvenient?" I said, keeping my tone calm even though I could feel my pulse in my throat. "That's not like changing your favorite color, Lauren. This is huge." "Don't make it dramatic," she snapped, grabbing her plate. "I'm just being honest." "Being honest would have been saying this years ago," I shot back. She stood up, jaw tight. "You're making me feel cornered. Can we not?" And just like that, she walked out of the kitchen, plate in hand, like the conversation was over. I sat there staring at the empty chair, the half-drunk coffee, the silence. I wasn't even angry, just stunned. All those nights we'd talked about names, schools, even what kind of parents we'd be, gone with one word: never. Later that night, I tried to bring it up again. She was on the couch, watching one of her shows. I sat beside her quietly. "Lauren," I started, "we need to talk about earlier." She didn't look away from the screen. I said I don't want kids. "What else is there to say?" "Maybe not about kids," I said, trying to stay calm, "but about us. You've been pulling away for months. We barely touch, we barely talk. Now you're rewriting our future like it's a shopping list. Something's not right." She rolled her eyes. "You're overthinking again." "I'm not overthinking. I'm observing," I said. "You've changed completely. You act like I'm an obligation instead of your husband." She gave a dry laugh. "Oh, so now I'm a villain? Because I'm not acting the way you want?" "That's not what I said." "Yes, it is. You're mad I'm not obsessed with you like before." I leaned forward. "I'm not asking for obsession. I'm asking for effort." "Effort?" she scoffed. "Jake, we have a house, jobs, bills. That's effort. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like some movie all the time." "This isn't about movies," I said, voice firm. "This is about us not even trying anymore." She sighed dramatically and turned the volume up. "God, you're exhausting sometimes." That was it. The tone, the dismissiveness. I turned the TV off. "Fine," I said. "Then let's try something practical. How about couples therapy?" She gave me this short laugh, like I'd told a bad joke. "We don't need therapy just because I don't want sex all the time." My jaw tightened. "That's not why I said therapy." She smirked. "Sure it isn't." I stared at her. "You really think everything's fine, don't you?" "Everything is fine," she said without hesitation. "You're just making problems where there aren't any." For a second, I didn't know what to say. She was so sure of herself, so convinced that she'd done nothing wrong, that I started doubting my own reality. "All right," I finally said. "If you ever decide you want to talk like adults, I'll be here." She shrugged, turned the TV back on and said, "I'm watching this." I walked out and went to my office, closing the door behind me. Sat in my chair for an hour, just staring at the wall. That laugh, that dismissive, smug laugh when I mentioned therapy, stuck with me. It wasn't that she disagreed, it was that she didn't care. She didn't want to fix anything. That night, while she slept soundly beside me, I lay awake realizing something brutal. This wasn't just about affection or attraction. It wasn't even about kids. It was about her completely shutting down every dream, every plan, every piece of us that used to exist. And I was finally starting to accept that she wasn't confused. She was content. Content in a version of marriage where I didn't matter. Another week passed that way. I worked late most nights because it was easier than sitting across from her pretending everything was fine. When I did come home early, she'd already eaten. Thursday night, I came home around 7. She was making dinner. Pasta, her favorite. I stood in the doorway for a second, watching her hum to herself, completely at peace. That peace used to make me happy. Now it just made me feel like a ghost. At dinner, she smiled faintly. "You've been less intense lately." I like this version of us. Less intense? I asked. Yeah, she said between bites. It's just peaceful. No pressure, no expectations. Feels like we're finally comfortable. I stared at her for a moment. You're happy like this? Yeah, she said simply. Aren't you? No, I said. Not even close. Her fork froze midair. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not happy, Lauren. I've been trying to pretend I am, but this. I gestured between us. This isn't a marriage anymore. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, here we go again. Here we go again? We haven't talked about this in weeks, I said, keeping my tone calm. You said you wanted peace. I gave you peace. Now you're calling it happiness, while I'm sitting here feeling like a stranger in my own home. You're being dramatic, she snapped. Just because I don't want to jump into bed every night doesn't mean I don't love you. This isn't about sex, I said. Really? Because it sure sounds like it. Every time we talk, it comes back to that. It's about connection, I said. Intimacy isn't just physical. It's how we show love, not just say it. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're unbelievable. You think love is measured by how often we touch? That's so shallow, Jake. I kept my tone level. You're twisting it. I'm saying I need to feel wanted by the person I married. You act like that's selfish. Because it is selfish, she shot back. You only care about what you're not getting. You don't care about how I feel. How you feel, I repeated. I've spent months trying to figure that out. You've shut me out completely. And the second I bring it up, you make me the problem. She slammed her fork down. You are the problem. You're obsessed with everything that's missing instead of appreciating what we have. I work, I come home, I share my life with you. What else do you want? I want my wife, I said quietly. Not a roommate who happens to wear my ring. She gave a dry laugh. Maybe you should have married someone who wants to play house every night. I'm not that person. Yeah, I said. I'm starting to see that. Her face hardened. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been holding on to the version of you that actually cared about us. The one who wanted a life together, not just a routine. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. So what? Now you're threatening to leave? Because you're not getting enough attention? I shook my head. I'm not threatening anything. I'm being honest. Honest, she repeated mockingly. You think you're the only one struggling? You think it's easy for me? Constantly being pushed to do things I don't feel like doing? I'm not pushing you, I said firmly. I stopped pushing months ago. You wanted space, I gave it to you. You wanted quiet, I gave that too. And you know what? You're still unhappy. You just call it peace. She glared at me, breathing hard. You're unbelievable. You twist everything. You make me feel guilty for not being some perfect wife who worships you. I never asked for worship, I said, keeping my voice even. I asked for partnership. She stood up, her voice rising. You just want control. That's what this is. You can't handle that I'm not bending to your needs anymore. I looked at her steadily. You know what's crazy? I've never once tried to control you. You, on the other hand, have decided that every normal part of marriage, affection, closeness, communication, is optional when it stops suiting you. She pointed at me like she was scolding a child. You're twisting my words again. No, I said. I'm just finally calling them what they are. She stared at me for a few seconds, then said coldly, If you're that miserable, Jake, then leave. The room went silent. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator. Is that what you want? I asked quietly. She didn't hesitate. I want peace, and you clearly can't give it to me. I nodded slowly, studying her face. There was no anger, no sadness, just finality. Okay, I said. Then I won't stand in the way of your peace. Her expression flickered for half a second, maybe confusion or surprise, but I didn't stick around to decode it. I stood, took my plate to the sink, and rinsed it. She didn't say another word. That was the night I decided I was done. Not in rage or heartbreak, just clarity. If she wanted a life without pressure, without closeness, without me, I'd make sure she got it. I woke up the next morning feeling clear. Not calm, not angry, just done. The decision didn't feel emotional. It felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for months. While she got ready for work, I sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee. She said goodbye like any normal day, kissed the air near my cheek, and left. That tiny space between us said everything. The second the door shut, I pulled out my laptop and searched for divorce attorneys. It felt strange seeing the word on the screen, but I didn't hesitate. I found a reputable firm nearby and booked a consultation for the next morning. No hesitation. No second guessing. After the call, I looked around the house, our house, and realized how lifeless it felt. Every room looked staged, like a display in a furniture catalog. Nothing personal anymore. Her candles, her books, her perfect little arrangements. I could barely find traces of myself in it. I opened the closet and started packing my things. Slowly, carefully. Shirts, shoes, watch, chargers. I didn't grab everything, just what was mine. No dramatic suitcase slamming, no shouting, no tears. Just a man quietly detaching from a life he no longer recognized. Every now and then, I'd stop and glance at something that used to mean something. The framed picture from our honeymoon, the card she wrote me on our first anniversary, the blanket we picked out together at Target. It all looked like props from someone else's story. Before noon, my side of the closet was nearly empty. I left the hangers on the floor. The place looked hollow. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, thinking about what to say. I didn't owe her a long letter. I'd said everything worth saying already. She just never listened. So I grabbed a notepad and wrote, "You wanted a roommate. I want a wife." That was it. Clean, final, and true. I left the note on the kitchen counter where she'd see it first thing when she walked in. The ring came off next. I stared at it in my palm for a moment. A simple band, nothing fancy. It used to symbolize something real. Now, it just felt like a reminder of how easily people can stop caring. I didn't want to throw it away, so I drove to a small pawn shop downtown. The guy behind the counter looked at it and offered me a fair amount. I left the shop feeling lighter. Then I drove to my brother's place on the other side of town. When he opened the door, he took one look at me and didn't ask a single question. Just moved aside and said, "Spare room's open." We sat on the back porch later that evening. I told him everything. The distance, the fights that never happened, the silence that did all the damage. He didn't say much, just nodded. At the end, he said, "Man, you held on longer than most would have." I shrugged. I kept thinking she'd come around. He gave a sad half smile. People like her don't come around. They get comfortable. He was right. That night, I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the kind of quiet that doesn't ache, just exists. I expected guilt or sadness to hit me, but it didn't. Just clarity. Around 9, my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring. A voicemail popped up, then another, then another. By the third one, curiosity got the better of me. I played the first. "Hey, where are you? Your stuff's gone. What's going on? Call me." The second one came a few minutes later, sharper. "This is ridiculous, Jake. Whatever you're trying to prove, just stop. You can't just leave without talking." The third was louder. "You don't get to do this. We're married. You're acting like a child." Then came the shift. Her voice cracked a little. "If I did something wrong, we can fix it. Just call me." By the fifth voicemail, she was panicking. "I know you're getting these. Please talk to me. Don't throw away everything over this." The sixth came in with anger again. "Fine. Be childish, but you'll have to come back eventually. You can't just walk away from responsibility." And then the last one. Quiet. Uncertain. "Did I say something wrong? I thought we were happy. I don't understand." I stared at the phone for a long time after that. Not out of hesitation, but realization. She really didn't understand. She thought this was about one fight, one misunderstanding, not the months of her choosing distance over love. I played the last message again. Her voice was shaking, softer than I'd heard in a long time. But even then, it wasn't regret. It was confusion that her peaceful setup had finally fallen apart. I typed one short text. "You wanted peace. You have it now." Then I blocked her number. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. No overthinking, no hope, no dread. Just silence. The kind that finally felt right. But silence doesn't stay silent for long. 2 days later, she showed up at my job. I was in the middle of a meeting when my coworker poked his head into the conference room. Jake, there's a woman asking for you at the front desk. Says it's urgent." I already knew. When I walked out, she was standing by reception, arms crossed, wearing that familiar mix of anger and disbelief. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. "Jake, we need to talk," she said. I kept my voice even. "You shouldn't be here, Lauren. You left me no choice," she snapped. "You disappear, block my number, and expect me to just... What? Pretend this isn't happening?" I gestured toward the hallway. "You can't do this here." "I'll wait in the parking lot then," she said firmly. "But you will talk to me." Security ended up escorting her out 15 minutes later after she refused to leave the lobby. My manager didn't even look surprised. Just said, "Rough week, huh?" and went back to work. They logged the whole thing and issued a no trespass notice, which meant if she showed up again, it'd count as harassment. It happened again 3 days later. Different outfit, same scene. Security walked her out again and logged it as a second violation, telling me they'd involve police if it happened again. That's when I contacted my lawyer to speed up the divorce process. She responded by contesting it. Her claim? I'd abandoned her over sex. When I read the paperwork, I actually laughed out loud. It was written like I'd stormed out because she skipped one date night. Her lawyer painted me as some emotionally stunted husband who couldn't handle maturity. My lawyer, a calm, older guy named Harris, read the documents and sighed. She's trying to frame this as a moral abandonment case. Common tactic when they don't have grounds for fault. She's got no idea what this was really about, I said. She doesn't need to, Harris replied. That's my job. He built a case around emotional neglect and loss of marital support. We had texts, emails, and my written notes between her and me from the months leading up to it. Nothing dramatic, just proof of her indifference. Harris said judges see that kind of pattern all the time. When the first hearing came, she showed up looking like she'd rehearsed the part of the wronged wife. Neat blazer, no tears, but plenty of sighs. Her lawyer stood and said, "My client was blindsided by her husband's abrupt abandonment. He made no effort to communicate or resolve issues through counseling. He simply decided physical dissatisfaction justified ending a marriage." And when it was Harris's turn, he stood calmly and said, "Your Honor, what my client ended wasn't a marriage. It was a one-sided arrangement where his emotional and physical needs were ignored for months. He did try to communicate. He was dismissed. He suggested counseling. He was mocked. This was not impulsive. This was survival." She glared at me the entire time, eyes sharp, jaw tight. The judge ordered a temporary separation period before finalizing anything. That dragged on for months. During that time, our mutual friends started taking sides. Some texted me quietly saying they understood, that they'd noticed how withdrawn she'd been at gatherings. Others sent long messages about how marriage takes work, and you don't just give up when things get hard. One even said, "She's devastated, man. She really loves you. But love without effort isn't love. It's comfort." Meanwhile, she started struggling with money. Mutual friends mentioned she'd complained about the mortgage being too much on her own. Still, she told everyone she was fine, that she just needed time to heal, and that I'd come back once I cooled off. Apparently, she even told her sister that I was having a midlife crisis. I was 33. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. No extra drama, no fighting over stuff, but life has a way of throwing one last scene in for closure. It happened on a random Tuesday afternoon. I stopped by a coffee shop near work to grab something before a meeting. The place was quiet, almost empty. I was scrolling through my phone while waiting for my drink when I heard a familiar voice. "Jake?" I looked up. Lauren stood near the entrance, holding a book and a to-go cup. She looked smaller somehow, thinner, more tired. The confidence she used to wear like armor was gone. She walked over slowly. "I didn't think I'd run into you." "Yeah," I said. "Small city." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment before she spoke again. "You look good." "Thanks." She hesitated, then said softly, "I've been thinking maybe we could talk. Not about getting back together or anything, just talk." I shrugged. "Talking didn't do much last time." She sighed. "I know. I get it now. Maybe I was too cold, too rigid. I could have been more understanding. Maybe we could try again. I can accommodate what you need." That word, accommodate, made something inside me close off completely. I shook my head. "I didn't want to be accommodated, Lauren. I wanted a wife who actually wanted me." She froze. Her lips parted like she had something to say, but nothing came out. I put my coffee down, looked her in the eye, and said quietly, "You wanted peace. You got it. I'm not part of it anymore." Then I walked out. When I got back to my car, I sat there for a minute. Not out of sadness, out of relief. For the first time, I didn't feel haunted by what happened. I didn't feel guilty or bitter. I just felt free. The kind of freedom that comes when you stop waiting for someone to understand what they never will. That's what I had now. A year later, life looked nothing like it used to. I'd moved into a smaller apartment closer to work, got back into running, and started cooking again. My mornings didn't feel heavy anymore. There wasn't tension waiting behind every door. And then there was Emma. I met her through a mutual friend at a small cookout. She was the type of person who made conversations easy. No games, no guarded tone, no pretending. She had this calm, warm energy that felt real, not forced or polished. We started talking more, and before I realized it, she'd become part of my daily life. With Emma, everything that used to feel like effort just happened naturally. She'd reach for my hand without thinking about it. She'd lean into me on the couch instead of away. She'd kiss me mid-sentence for no reason. It wasn't about being physical all the time. It was about being wanted. I hadn't realized how emotionally starved I'd been until she showed me what normal actually looked like. One night, months into dating, We were lying on the couch watching some dumb movie neither of us was paying attention to. She shifted closer, put her head on my chest, and said softly, "You zone out a lot when you talk about your ex." I laughed. Old habit. I think I spent a whole marriage trying to figure her out. Emma looked up at me. "You ever get answers?" "Yeah," I said. "They just came too late." She didn't ask more. She just nodded and kissed my hand. That small gesture, that quiet understanding, hit harder than any apology I'd ever gotten from my ex. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of something that went both ways. But life has a funny sense of humor. You think you've closed a chapter, and then it sends you a reminder just to make sure you meant it. Every few weeks, her name would pop up somewhere online. I didn't follow her, but mutual friends still had her added. Posts would float across my feed. Quotes about men being obsessed with sex, modern relationships being shallow, or how hard it is to find a man who values emotional connection over physical needs. Once she even posted, "Men only want you for your body, and when you stop giving it, they act like you're broken." It was like watching someone rewrite history in real time. I'd scroll past without reacting, but sometimes the comments made me shake my head. Her friends would write stuff like, "Preach," or "You deserve someone emotionally mature," and she'd reply with heart emojis, like she was the spokesperson for misunderstood wives. Meanwhile, mutual friends would send the occasional update. "She's still single," one of them said. Still ranting online. Still doesn't get it. Apparently, she tried dating again. But every relationship ended the same way. Too much pressure, too many expectations. She'd talk about how exhausting men were, how they always wanted something from her. She never once seemed to ask what she was bringing to the table. Then I heard she started therapy. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally turned a corner. Maybe she was ready to face her part in everything. But that hope didn't last long. A friend who still talked to her told me she fired her first therapist after 3 sessions. "He said she's afraid of vulnerability," my friend explained. "She said he was projecting and found someone else." The new therapist, apparently, validated her truth, meaning she found someone who told her exactly what she wanted to hear, that she was right all along and men just couldn't handle a woman with boundaries. It was sad to hear, but not surprising. She'd rather rebuild her own narrative than admit she might have killed her marriage by shutting it down piece by piece. Sometimes I'd think about what would have happened if she'd been willing to listen back then. If she'd said, "You're right, something's wrong, let's fix it. But that version of her didn't exist anymore. And I wasn't waiting around for her to find it. I didn't hate her for what happened. Hate would mean she still had power over me. I just pitied her for never learning that love isn't supposed to feel like relief from someone else's presence. It's supposed to feel like comfort in it. I turned over, wrapped my arm around Emma, and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I wasn't replaying conversations in my head or trying to understand someone who didn't want to be understood. I'd finally stopped chasing the version of peace that comes from silence. Because real peace comes from being wanted, not just tolerated. And Lauren? She wanted peace over passion, comfort over connection. So I gave her exactly what she asked for: a life without me. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.